Well, guys, this is a real treat. I have my good friend Colin Boyd on the show today, and Colin is a world-class speaker, speaker coach, sales coach, selling from stage coach. He works with all the big names, you know, whether it's Amy Porterfield or Jenna Kutcher, all the people who have killer presentations. They're doing great webinars. Colin is the secret sauce. He's the ninja behind the curtain. He's like pulling the strings, helping to make sure that their presentations convert and drive more sales, which is ultimately why we do what we do. And so he's got a brand new book coming out. You could pre-order it right now, one presentation away, become an irresistible speaker and convert more clients. So we're going to talk all about that today. So Colin, glad to have you on the show, my friend.
Hey, it's great to be here, Graham.
Dude, how do you feel having written your first book, right? Because this is the first one, right?
Yeah, this is my first one. It's funny, I attempted to write a few different books prior and I got to like chapter 3 and then just fell off the horse. But this is the first time that I completed it. And I think because I actually had some accountability, like I had a publisher who was waiting for me to deliver it. So it was good. It was really good. I love the idea of just being forced to condense your knowledge into some sort of format that is, you know, applicable, but also easy to understand. So it was a cool experience.
Yeah, dude, I think writing a book is a transformative experience. It makes you a better teacher. And for you, I mean, you've been teaching and doing this stuff for so many years. It's the perfect time to write a book because it's not theory. Like this book is not theory. This is the culmination of probably 2 decades worth of experience. And so for you, I bet it was even transformative to say, how could I convey what I've been helping clients do for years into a book that someone could pick up and actually go use in their business today and make more money? Was there any, before we get into some of like the content in the book, was there any like revelation for you in like having to teach it in a book that came out of it?
I mean, this particular content I've been teaching for about 9 years. So to write the book, I already had the general frameworks and knowledge and I've tested it so many times and with thousands of clients that it just helped me to make it more succinct. But I think the biggest thing was that it just helped me to, just really like crystallize some of those ideas and just get those nuances down. So I'm excited. My goal was, when I think about it, because I have read a lot of books on this topic around building a presentation, and specifically I have like quite a niche of selling from the stage, like a presentation that sells. And I read quite a lot of books in that genre, and to be honest, most of them I would read and be really disappointed. You know, I'd walk away and be like, did they even talk about selling from stage at all? And I wanted to write a book where I felt like, hand on heart, obviously it's going to be up to the readers, but I felt like, wow, like this book, if someone reads this, they're going to feel more equipped, they're going to feel confident, they're going to feel excited to actually speak from a stage and even sell from some sort of presentation. So I feel like I've done that when I handed it to the publishers. Maybe it's just my overconfidence, but I said to them, I'm like, guys, this is the best book written on this topic to this date.
That's a goal.
I don't know if they understood my humor, but I also meant it, because I'm like, anything I build, I just want to make sure it's amazing. You know, like it's an incredible experience, and that was my goal. And hopefully, you know, it's up to the readers if they feel like that's true, but that was my energy behind it.
I love it. I know it's going to be the best one because you're like literally the best at what you do. And you've helped me in my presentations, and I've watched the people you've worked with, and I watch how you do what you do. And I just think you do it in a way that's not pushy. It's not scammy. Like you understand just human psychology and what gets people excited about saying yes to an offer and how to do that from stage. So two related thoughts. Let's jump in, because I think people who listen to the show, watch this show, they may not view themselves as speakers. And they may not view themselves as on a stage, but I think they are. They're content creators, they're messengers, they're speaking all the time, whether the stage is Instagram or their YouTube channel or their podcast or a webinar or a challenge, whatever it might be. So maybe speak to, when you say stage, what do you mean? And what's the idea? Because this is what I love about what you do, Colin, is that your book, you're one presentation away away from what, and what does that mean? And how can that actually simplify our business if it's only one presentation that's the gap between where we are and where we want our business to be?
Mm. So first of all, I mean, the idea of being a speaker, you don't have to see yourself as like a professional speaker where, you know, you're paid $10,000 to come to an event and speak. Like if that's not your intention of what you want to do, that's totally fine. But I think about anyone who has a message that they want to share with the world, they feel a purpose and a responsibility to share that. I think has a mandate to get good at sharing that, because you can have the greatest content, the greatest ideas, but they're only received to the level that they're communicated at, to the sophistication, the elegance that those ideas resonate with the audience. And it's like in any sort of, in any sort of job, you can have great skills, but if you can't communicate the value of your skills, then you'll only ever be seen based on the level of your communication, not necessarily the level of your skill set. It's a lot slower journey. So if you want to accelerate your business, if you want to accelerate your career, learning to communicate the value of an idea and learning how to share ideas that move people, I mean, it literally is pretty much the highest paid skill on the planet. Speakers, if you're moving to professional speaking, you can earn 100, 200,000. Obviously that's celebrity level, but for a 50-minute presentation, like getting paid $200,000, $300,000 for a 50-minute presentation, it kind of seems like outrageous, because it is. it is outrageous, but this is the power of good communication. If you can become a fantastic communicator, then you can sell your products more effectively, you can connect with your audience, and you can make more of an impact in people's lives. And so that skill of just learning to speak, there's so many, skills in growing a business, but I think that skill is one of those needle movers that I think every expert, whether you're an online expert, whether you're doing offline stuff, I don't think it matters. I think that skill is just a crucial skill. So that's the first idea. The second one you mentioned was the one presentation away. And I think one of the traps that people fall into is they think that they have to launch a new topic or a new presentation, every single time they run a launch or do a webinar or do a speech. But in fact, the biggest business owners and experts in the world, they pretty much deliver the same presentation every single time. I mean, I've had the chance to work with the biggest names in the world. And it's fascinating because even when I get together with them, we go through the presentation. It's usually like 90% of the time, it's a presentation that they've already delivered before that converted really well. And they just want to make it convert even better, right? And so I think so often people think that, it has to be really complex or so many moving pieces, but it literally is just one presentation. If you can build a high converting presentation that resonates with your audience and moves them into your programs, that the lifetime of that presentation, typically if it's a good one and the market doesn't change too much, you can usually get about 3 years out of a good presentation where you literally barely have to make any changes, and you've got almost, now it's not guaranteed, but it's, if you dial that puppy in, you can put a lot of bets on that presentation that it's going to convert and you're going to make money from it. And it's an incredible asset that you build in your business to build your revenue.
I love everything about that because to me, it's a scalable skill. It's a scalable model. I'm always asking myself, what is the least effort I can put into it and get the maximum output? Not because I want to be lazy, but because I don't like to be wasteful, and I would rather do only things that really matter. And so this idea of one-to-many communication, which I'm a big fan of. Obviously, you could use that presentation one-to-one, but one-to-many is a good scalable thing to do. So that could be a webinar, that could be a live stream, that could be on Instagram or the post, that could be literally getting on a stage. But then the idea of just, okay, I don't have to keep coming up with a new talk or a new topic. In fact, it makes more sense to get really good at one talk, one message, one presentation for the purposes of what you described, being able to nuance it and optimize it and tweak it. Where with some of these people, when they're doing a presentation in front of 100,000 people, increasing a 0.5% to a percentage of conversion rate equals tens of thousands of dollars. But also, wouldn't you say, like, if you just do one presentation over and over again, you get really good at that presentation, and then you can be more natural and in your body and more like present, and you can perform the presentation more than having to like remember what's coming next and perform in the best sense of the word, right? You can actually give it the best version of itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the first couple of presentations are clunky. You know, it feels clunky in your body. It feels clunky for the audience. And after a couple, 4 or 5, it starts to get comfortable. And then you can really be present. You can be engaged, exactly what you're saying. And the more present you are, the more connected you'll be with the audience, and the higher the conversion rate will increase. In fact, I was just looking at one of our clients. His first presentation had zero conversions, and then his second presentation had a 33% conversion rate. And he delivered the same presentation, but the second one, he was just so much more comfortable, so much more confident in the process. And you just see that increase happen when people get familiar with their own content. They feel better about it. And then you also dial in the audience. And I think it's easier to find a new audience or to pay for a new audience, whether it's running Facebook ads or YouTube ads or whatever. It's easier to find a new audience than to find an entirely new topic for your content. And I think you're better off, finding an audience than finding a new topic, because if you find the right topic that suits your offer and what you do, you refine that in, and then you just grow your audience, and then you can scale up.
Well, that's a brilliant insight. Find a new audience, not a new topic or presentation. So talk to me about the mistakes. Like, you've worked with so many people, you teach this stuff, you've got a great podcast. What are like the 2 or 3 of the biggest classic mistakes we're making with our presentations, however we're doing them?
Well, I mean, if your intention is to get clients from the presentation, one of the classic mistakes is oversharing and overteaching, right? Is trying to jam everything in. It's like drink from the fire hose moment. And because you're so deep in your own expertise, you don't realize how quickly you can overwhelm people. And the thing is that if an audience comes and hears you and they are either there for free or even a small payment, the commitment level is actually still quite low. Even though if you were to survey them, they would say, yeah, I'm really committed to the outcome. But they're not really. Like, and this is human behavior. Like, it's not a criticism on anyone. It's just human behavior, right? And so the problem when you have people who have lower levels of commitment, it means they get overwhelmed more quickly. And that's why if you're teaching, in a paid program, maybe they're paying you a couple of $1,000s a year or whatever, they're a lot more committed to the outcome. They're going to spend more time working it out. They're going to spend more time on implementing it, and they're going to get through it. So they won't get as overwhelmed. But usually when you're doing a free presentation or a lower price presentation, people just aren't as committed. So you're going to overwhelm them really quickly. It's that expertise dilemma of you just put so much information in there so quickly. And I think a second mistake is thinking that if you just teach them like something really tactical and practical through the whole presentation, that they'll get so much value that when you get to the offer, they're going to think, wow, if I got that for free, then imagine what I get when I pay. And the problem with that is usually all that value you put in there, and I say it in inverted commas, value, is just overwhelm. You're just overwhelming people. I have this concept that I talk about in the book, which is lose the sale line. And the lose the sale line is this imaginary line that exists in a presentation. It also exists if you're having a one-on-one sales call as well. Where if you get into teaching mode, where you're basically taking people through lots of steps, lots of processes, lots of intricate detail, you're slowly losing the sale. And so you have to stay above the lose the sale line. What's above the lose the sale line? Stories, metaphors, case studies, examples, quotes, diagrams, models, frameworks, like all of these things are above the sales line. Now, it's not that you'd never go below that sales line, but you don't want to spend too much time below there, because that's what your course is for. Like when they're really committed, they're like, okay, that's what I want, I'm all in. Then you go deep, because you've already made the sale. So all of a sudden you can go below the lose the sale line because you've made the sale, and it becomes the made the sale line, and then they get all the tactical stuff as well.
That's so smart. And bro, this is what's so hard for me because I'm a content guy. I've been doing content for 16 years, tutorials, how to, and I believe that for so long. Like if I give the most tactical stuff, I out teach everybody, then I get all the customers. And in a way it worked in my story because my first business and my first YouTube channel really blew up in the music space because I just was teaching more than anybody else. And so it dominated. But I've had to unlearn a lot of that. And that was one of the things I learned from you early on when we first met in a mastermind and I started to follow your stuff. And I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, you're teaching too much, or like, what is it? What do you mean? And I really wanted to understand because I believed you and I knew there was more to learn. But as I was going on a journey, I was simultaneously learning how to become a good speaker because I like speaking on stage and getting paid to speak, but realizing, but if I learn how to speak to sell more back-end stuff, that's even more valuable to my business. So how can I speak in a way that doesn't just get claps, but also gets people to buy, which is what you teach. And that was one of the big ahas for me, bro, was this idea of what's truly valuable for the person listening to your presentation. Is it a bunch of how-to, or is it really helping them become the person that could say yes to your offer, like shifting their beliefs, helping them feel empowered? Because empowered people make bold decisions like buying a coaching program or investing in themselves. Disempowered people are afraid and timid. So it's almost a question of, does teaching the how and all the tactic stuff empower them, or does, to your point, overwhelm them and now they're not empowered to say yes to your offer, even if they think, wow, that was great, Graham, thanks for the information, but I don't know what to do next. So I don't know if that's something you've experienced of like what actually then goes into a presentation that makes people both feel like this was valuable and feel empowered to say yes to your offer at the end. What are the 2 or 3 things we need to be sticking into our presentations?
Yeah, great question. Well, I mean, the tactical stuff empowers people to a point. And the problem is that for most people when they teach, they've only got one gear, which is the practical, tactical, informational stuff. And does that empower them? Yeah, I think it can help them, but it can easily overwhelm them and it can turn into disempowering them. So essentially there's 3 big ideas that I always like to think about putting into a presentation. The first thing is removing resistances. So reframing what value actually is, because most people think, value is just teaching them how to do it. But if they don't do it because they have some mental frames that are stopping them, unless you remove those mental frames, the how-to isn't valuable at all because they're not going to do it. It's actually got 0 value. And so to be able to extract value in people's lives, first of all, you have to help them to get over the blocks. And so, for example, I'll give an example. So for me, we teach selling from stage, selling from a presentation. And one of the mental blocks is people just feel really uncomfortable selling, right? Let alone speaking. They feel uncomfortable selling. And so one of the frames that I'll put in, I went deep into it in the book, is the idea that selling is your serving. Like selling is part of the serving process. And in fact, you can't serve people at the highest level unless you sell something to them. And people have this warped perspective of what serving is, that, serving is just giving something without accepting anything in return. But, from a commercial perspective, to have a heart for your clients and to serve them, if they don't make a transaction with you, then they're not going to be committed to their own outcome as much. And so the transaction is part of that transformation as well. And so when they make the transaction, they commit to themselves, they commit to your program. You have an opportunity to partner with them and to serve them on a whole nother level because their commitment has risen. And so one reframe that I'll use is selling is serving. Selling is the doorway to open up serving on the next level. It's why you get your best testimonials, not from people on random things that they watch on Instagram from you. You get them from your clients because they say, oh my gosh, Graham's stuff changed my life. Colin's stuff changed my life, because they're a client, they're more committed. And, that leaves a clue that, hey, when people pay money, when people join your programs, when the commitment goes up, then the service, the transformation is 10x, 100x bigger. And so seeing the idea of selling as part of your serving, that it doesn't have to be seen as taking something from someone. It's actually really just facilitating a transformation, and a transaction is part of that transformational experience. Then you're going to feel more comfortable making an offer and selling. And so, I could teach all the tactical things about building a presentation that sells, but if people just fundamentally won't let themselves make an offer or sell with real conviction, all the tactical stuff won't make a difference, because energetically they're going to be in the wrong place. And so, first of all, that's one example of removing resistances that people would have about a particular topic. So the question you ask yourself is basically, what's stopping my audience from moving forward? What's getting in their way? What are the beliefs that they're believing that are stopping them from seeing a transformation or really taking action in this area? And you identify 2 or 3 of those, and that should actually form a good chunk of your presentation. Just doing those reframes is really powerful. So that's kind of the first one. I know I mentioned 3, but any thoughts, comments? What are your thoughts on that, Graham?
I mean, I think it's brilliant because, well, selling is serving is just a powerful reframe in general that I think we all should take from this. But I know that's sort of meta. That was an example of what we're talking about, which is removing resistance. So the dream within a dream.
Yes.
But removing resistance is something we don't think enough about as experts, content creators, business owners. We think a lot about, well, I would say if we're wise, we're thinking a lot about the measurable outcome our offer is going to give these people. Like, what is it they really want? And that's wise. But a lot of times we don't think enough about what would inhibit them from saying yes to the offer. Like, what are they thinking about? And the good news is if you built your business sort of around like what, our mutual friend Rory Vaden from Brand Builder says, that you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. A lot of our expert businesses are serving the past version of ourselves. So we can at the very least think back to what was the resistance that we had before we got into what we were doing. And that is so powerful because in my mind, right, if you address that in your presentation, it shows, wow, this guy knows me. B, it shows empathy. He feels what I'm feeling. And then C, it's this invitation to like, you can believe differently. There's a different way. And I almost think in the sea of AI and so much content, like the how-to can come so quickly on a surface level. To stand out, you really need to be in the belief shifting business. And because that's what a true mentor or guide does. And it's not like, here's the answer. It's like helping someone think deeply about something and change their thoughts and actually setting them free by today. You may not have changed your life physically. That might take time, but you can change your mind instantly and life can feel different today. And that, I think that would be a powerful residue from a good presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, shifting people's thoughts around a topic, removing resistances is value. And so when you reframe the idea of what value is, that's why, I mean, the best keynoters, the best speakers in the world, they don't give really many tactical tips. They're going to tell a powerful story. They're going to share a reframe. They're going to share a metaphor. They're going to share something that inspires you to make a shift, make a decision, and to live a bigger life. And that's what a great presentation that moves people does. So first piece is removing resistances. The second piece is increasing desire. So this is like the teaching part. So I think it's useful to teach, but once again, you have to be careful to not spend too much time below the lose the sale line. So you can teach and share concepts. I usually like to think about what is the most interesting or desirable topics that my audience want to hear about, and I'll teach on that. So for example, one of them for me is storytelling, like telling stories that sell, or a conversion story. And so I'll teach on that for a bit, and it's really interesting, right? It's fascinating. So for your listeners, you want to think about what's a useful or intriguing topic that people have or people are interested in relation to your topic, and you can teach some stuff on that, right? In a 60-minute presentation, that might be 15 minutes of it. And then the last piece is revealing the vehicle. And the vehicle is like your unique way of getting the outcome that you help people with. So maybe you've got a 4-step process, or you've got some sort of structured approach to getting an outcome. I wouldn't overcomplicate it. Like, you want to keep it to 3 to 4, 5 steps max. Just something simple that you can visually show people to go, hey, this is the vehicle that we use that makes us unique, and this is how it all works. So that should all make sense and, logicalize the whole process. And then you can move into the offer. And if it resonates with people and you've removed the resistances, you've created desire, and you've shown them a way, then the next step will be to, decide whether they want to work with you.
Yeah, it's so brilliant. We were talking off camera before we hit record. Earlier this year, I launched a new challenge, and it's like a 5-day presentation in a way. It's just like stretching it out over multiple days. And it's exactly what I'm doing in the challenge, right? Is in that challenge, it's my 10K offer challenge, helping people literally build their $10,000 offer or their $5,000 offer or $20,000, whatever, build their high ticket offer in real time. And there's a lot that has to happen. Like, people have to believe that they even could command those kind of prices. Like, how could I charge that much? It's so much resistance. So at the very beginning of the challenge, we have to address that of like, what actually makes an offer worth $10,000, and who are you to sell that, and who would you even sell that to, and all these things that come up, and then we can get into some of the desire about, like, for me, it's like showing them, especially on day 2, what I call a magic offer. How do you make an offer that's like irresistible? It's high ticket and high converting at the same time, right? Because a high ticket offer that's low converting is an exhausting offer, and that's not what we want. Like, yeah, you make a lot of money if you sold it, but you got to do all this work to sell it. And then a lot of people have low ticket, high converting offers, which are great, but then I call them needy offers because you need a lot of them, and they attract very needy customers. And so what we want is that magic offer,
the
which
model.
is right. You're seeing the model,
the quadrant.
Right? There you go. It is. It's literally, it's the magic offer matrix. You got it. I love frameworks. But when I show people how you can craft an irresistible offer, then they realize, oh, I could just repackage, reimagine what I already am trying to sell at a lower price. I could sell for much higher if I better communicated, going back to your original point, the offer and the value that I created. Even in a 5-day challenge, my whole point is we have to remove resistance, we have to increase desire, and then I have to convince them that the vehicle for them, which what they want is to make $50,000 a month or $100,000 a month consistently without having to have this massive audience and keeping up with the virality of content. Well, to me, that vehicle is a high ticket offer. And so there's all of those things happening in a 5-day challenge, and it's so cool to see the scales fall from their eyes and the weight lift from the shoulders as we go each day. And by day 5, like, people are sold on this concept. They're like, I need this, or they've already sold their first $10,000 offer. And so it's exactly what you're saying, Colin, whether it's in a 45-minute webinar presentation, whether it's in a one-to-one sales call, whether it's even sitting next to someone on the airplane, they ask, what do you do? And you tell them, I help people convert more clients with one presentation. They say, wow, how do you do that? And you start to talk about it, and now they want to hire you. It's the same process of, well, remove resistance, increase desire, reveal the vehicle. And to me, I think that's what's so brilliant about what you do, is that is very valuable to people, because you just save them a ton of like headache and trial and error. But to your point, you didn't overwhelm them too much where you beat them down with it. You just sort of let them raise their hand and say, I want more of this or not. And that, you use that word resonate a lot. I think that's one of your words I learned from you is, if this has resonated with you and that can bridge to the offer, maybe talk about that as like an internal goal. When you're making a presentation, you know you're not going to convert everybody. How do you feel about that? How do you think about it? Are you just sending out a signal for the right people to go, man, I need more of what Colin has given me?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the people who end up doing our programs or reading our books now, they're very, I attract a lot of people who are they're not like the bro marketers, like they want to create an attraction-based experience where the client doesn't feel, strong-armed into making a decision. But you want to do it in a way where you're not leaving money on the table as well. So it's an interesting balance. And so, I mean, I even think about what you shared just then. Imagine if you got into your challenge and you just taught, hey, here's how to build a 10K offer. You just taught it like tactically, but you didn't actually shift their perspective of like, who are you to offer a 10K offer? How do you value yourself to a point where you can make a 10K offer? What are the resistances that are stopping you making high ticket? Like if you don't address that, it doesn't matter how great their 10K offer is designed, they're probably not going to do it. And so that's another example of like how value is contextual based on where you are in the journey. And so when you're building a presentation that sells, there's a lot of value in understanding what's stopping you from moving forward. There's a lot of value in understanding like the opportunity that is available to you, because maybe you're blind to the real opportunity that's in front of you with the vehicle that you teach your audience. And so, I think that, yeah, a lot of people have this one idea of what value is, and they think it's all how to, but I think that contextually, when you see it in where the person's up to, value is actually in shifting their mindset. I think about, I live in the US, and we've been living here for about 9 years or so. But for about 3 years, Sarah and I, my wife, we talked about moving to the US. So what I did was I researched, right? So I went on Google and I picked people's brains of people who had moved over there. I'd messaged them on Facebook. I'd gone on all the little, forums and stuff. And after 3 years of researching on how to move to the US, I was more confused on how to do it than I was at the start.
Wow.
Right. I'm like, I have no idea. Right. I've heard so many different opinions, but everything changed when I remember Sarah and I had a conversation. We're like, are we going to actually do this thing? Like, are we serious? And so we made a decision that we were. And so we went and saw a professional, immigration attorney. We followed their process just to a T. We followed their process. And it was like a 4-month process. Within 4 months, we'd moved to the US. It was so quick. And I think about that's so often how we kind of, we think about our clients. They're in research mode, but really what they need is a decision. And when they make a decision and then they follow a path that's already been laid out and proven and tested, then they're going to get, a higher increase, a higher chance of getting a result that they want, which is really your offer, right? What you go through. And so that's a cool like story about understanding the power of just, you actually need to make a decision. Your audience needs to make a decision. They don't need more information.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I just did an episode of the show about why we're information rich, but implementation poor, right? And there's giving them more information, back to your point, isn't actually serving them. This is what I love about what you do, Colin, and I know you personally, so I know your heart, and you and Sarah, what you stand for. You really are in the business of serving people. You truly want to transform lives. I think that's why you're so successful and why so many people come to you, because they know, hey, Colin wants to actually serve me and help me. And so I think that's the beauty of it, is if we want to serve people, and I think people that watch my stuff, listen to this show, want to serve people, then it's the question is, what is more service oriented? Is it to give everything away for free? Nope. You need to charge for things, because people who pay attention. So if you want them to actually pay attention and get results, they have to pay something. But then 2, to your point, creating environments in your presentations that actually serve them and get them to make decisions. You talk about decision-based content. That's so powerful, because in a world where we're going to get more overwhelmed with more options, Barry Schwartz's book, The Paradox of Choice, if there's just too many choices, we're going to get frozen. And if you can be the mentor or the guide in your niche that's helping people take that next step, whatever it takes to take that next step, even if it's not hiring you, even if it's hiring somebody else, but like you need to invest in a coach, or you need to get a program, or you need to stop researching and just pick something, they will be served, I guess is my point, by that more than anything else. So I agree with what you're saying, and it just changes for me, and you tell me if this is how you feel. I feel like it takes the pressure off the presentation, where it's like, certain people are going to resonate. Not everyone's going to resonate. So that takes some pressure off. And then two, that it's designed to help people take the next big step. And whether that's buy your offer or not, they hopefully walk away knowing they're going to take a step of action and not just keep consuming presentations and not changing their lives.
Yeah. And when you think about it energetically, when you sell, essentially you're making an invitation. An offer it's an offering. You're giving something when you're making an offer. And so rather than you brought up that idea of resonate, when people resonate with you and they feel like you really get them, you understand them, that you can lead them, and there's a clear path ahead, and you make an invitation and you're like, hey, I've created this space, and the space looks like, and you unpack what it looks like, right? It's coaching, it's an online course, it's access to this and that. And the outcome, the goal, the hope is to achieve this. And I want to invite you into this space, into this next step. If you resonate with me, you'd love to take this next step, then I'd love to invite you. But it's not going to be for everyone, or it's not going to be available for everyone, because there needs to be a level of commitment that people bring to this space to make it sacred, to make it transformational. And so part of that commitment, part of the wall that protects the space, is paying money, right?
That's
because
good.
if you didn't pay money, it becomes a free for all, like a free Facebook group. And you're just going to get a whole bunch of random people in there, right? With all different intentions and all different kind of, energy. But when you put protection around an offer, and usually, like you brought up before, high ticket offers, the higher the price, usually the higher the protection. That's why high level masterminds are so powerful, because it takes a certain level of commitment and obviously money to be qualified enough, to have gone through enough challenge and lessons enough to be able to even put yourself in that room or that offer. And so usually the higher the fence or the higher the price, as a generalization, the more protected, more sacred that offer becomes. And
That's so good.
yeah, I think that for me is like, the price and the invitation is really just that. It's an invitation if they want to see a transformation. And not everyone's going to say yes. So take the pressure off yourself. Like, don't think, okay, I've got to convert everyone. Take that off. Just go, hey, the people who resonate, I want them to make a decision to move forward. So I've got to reduce their resistance, increase their desire, show them a vehicle that's really clear and compelling, and then invite them. And but they've got to have a certain level of commitment to enter that space, and that's what makes it sacred.
I love that idea of a sacred space in the wall. So good. Before we wrap up, just if someone's thinking like, okay, obviously they need to get your book. The book is one presentation away. They can pre-order it now at onepresentationawaybook.com. What if I'm going to start crafting my first presentation? Let's say I already know the stuff I teach. I've got an offer. Maybe I'm selling it in some other way. What's maybe the first step to just start to get my ideas together of how to craft a good presentation? Where would I begin?
Well, I think first of all, you got to think of the goal. So if the goal is to sell a program or a product, you start there, right? Like refining that offer, making sure that it's a strong, compelling offer, that it's something that the market wants. And then working back from there, you start with the core premise. And this is actually something we address early on in the book. And the core premise is the one single idea that runs through all of your content and leads directly to your offer. And so the core premise is the arrow that you're going to shoot through the entire presentation. And if people take on the core premise, then it's going to increase the chances of them seeing your offer as the next best step so much higher. And so your core premise is usually just one statement. It's one sentence. It's one single statement that just clearly identifies your vehicle and the outcome. So for me, it could be building a high converting presentation is the fastest way to grow and scale your business. Right? That could be my core premise. In fact, the name of my book is a core premise, one presentation away. Right. And one of my core premises is you're one presentation away from the breakthrough you want in your business. So that's another version of a core premise. Right. And my core premise isn't the only one. Like everyone has their own unique core premise, right? Everyone listening here, you have a valid core premise around what you teach to be able to get a result. So I think the first piece is to start with that, is to start with that core premise idea and work out what that core premise is so that you can get that clarity to build the content around that, following the structure we were starting to mention and unpack today. And then it will lead towards your offer. So yeah, I would recommend people to start with that.
So good, so smart. And that's just good advice for any presentation. If you've ever watched anyone give a presentation, it's just a jumbled mess of random stories. And like, you're like, wait, what was the point of his talk? What was he talking about? You know, they didn't have one core premise or one big idea for the talk. So I just love the simplicity of that, and 100% can vouch for that. And everyone, you should get the book, One Presentation Away, Become an Irresistible Speaker and Convert More Clients, which I think is what we all want to do, is converting more clients using your messaging. Colin teaches something so powerful. He calls his conversion story. You got to check that out. I'm sure parts of that are in the book. But literally, if you want to make sure that your webinar, your live streams, your messaging on Instagram, your challenges, whatever you're doing, if you want to make sure they're actually getting clients, get Colin's book at onepresentationawaybook.com. There's pre-order bonuses if you get it before October, I think, 27th. So get on those. Colin, real quick before we go, man, anything else about the book? And then I have one final question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. We've got some cool pre-order bonuses. I just put together what I'm calling the 100K presentation vault. So it's just a bunch of people who they're students of ours who have made more than $100,000 in a presentation, and I lifted the hood on what that looked like. So like, what was the content like? What did they spend on ads if they ran ads? How many times did they run the presentation? How many people showed up? How many people signed up? And so it's like, it's a behind the scenes that you don't normally get to look at behind $100,000 presentations. So you get that. There's a whole bunch of other bonuses as well, but that's a cool little thing that if you're serious about making serious money using speaking, it's really cool to see behind the scenes, and you get to see behind the magic show. So definitely grab that, which you just simply put in your receipt number on the website after you purchase it. So I'm really excited about that.
The 100K presentation vault, that's an absolute no-brainer. And knowing some of the clients you have, I think this is like gold, because these are some of the best people in the business doing it. Even the people we don't know as publicly as others, that's gold. So get those pre-order bonuses, guys. Check out the book, One Presentation Away. Colin, as always, I really appreciate what you're doing. And one final question, I always end with the golden rule segment, which is real simple, but it can go off script any direction you want. You've got wonderful children. You and Sarah are trying to raise them and teach them all kinds of stuff that's meaningful, that they'll carry with them forever. But let's assume they forget everything you guys ever taught them about life, about business, about whatever, except for one thing, one piece of advice they would carry with them their whole lives and always remember, Mom and Dad taught me. What would you want that to be? Something like a golden rule that they would live by.
I think for me, the thing that keeps my life together is to be integrate to my word. When I think about, building a life that is drama free and stable and successful, being integrate to your word, both to yourself and to others. I feel like that, I mean, we have that as our leading core principle in our business, is like, do what you say, essentially, be integrate to your word. And I feel like that creates integrity. It creates wholeness in how I live my life and how you get results. And so I would say that for me would be like a leading idea that I would want my kids to really grab a hold of, because I feel like you can be successful personally, professionally, spiritually, on any area of your life if you're integrate to your word.
So good. Of course, man. The speaker would say something about your word. I love it. So good, man. Colin, this has been amazing. The book, again, One Presentation Away, Become an Irresistible Speaker and Convert More Clients. You can pick it up wherever books are sold, or onepresentationawaybook.com for the pre-order bonuses. Colin, it's always good to see you, my friend. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Graham.